Don't ever let somebody tell you can't do something. You got a dream, you gotta protect it. You want something, go get it. Period.
What's up, guys? Jay here with the For the Love podcast, episode 28. And I'm here with someone that I came across on Instagram. And this is something that I kind of do from time to time when I see people that intrigue me or things that they're doing that is kind of, I feel genuine and a part of themselves. I try to reach out and get to know them a little bit more. And this is where we are today. Annie, and she goes as Annie Poet on Instagram, so you can check her out at Annie Poet. Annie, how are you today?
I'm doing all right. How are you?
I'm good. Busy day as always for me. I'm always like running around trying to do the things that I want to do in my life and make myself and others happy. So very busy. So you're out there in Toronto. That's Canada?
Yes. Okay. I'm in Ontario.
Yeah. How long have you been out there? Your whole life?
So yeah, I grew up here on the west end of Toronto.
Okay. And how old are you now?
I am 27 in a couple weeks.
Oh, well, happy birthday if I don't talk to you then. But
Yes.
So Canada is obviously different from where I am. I'm in Connecticut. Have you ventured out of Canada throughout your life, or?
Yeah, I passed Connecticut on my way to Boston.
Oh,
but
okay. Yes.
Yeah, so I've been to the States a few times, down to Aruba, and then I've traveled around Canada as well.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. Yeah. Some people I feel like they don't really get out much. They don't really travel outside of their comfort zone in this life,
Right.
and then you meet those people that's all they want to do, you know?
Yes.
Me, I'm trying to get to that point, but I had to put a lot of hard work in first before I can kind of live that life. And that's what I'm trying to do.
Yeah.
So when I came across you on Instagram, mainly, you're putting out your writing, which is what intrigued me. Is that something that you've always been doing your whole life, since you were young, or was it something that came about later in life?
So I have been writing since I was a kid. Like my dad would just put a pen in my hand and tell me, write a story, do this, do that. He always kind of wanted me to, pursue something creative, and which is very rare for parents, I would say.
Absolutely.
And, yeah, and then later on, I got into poetry. I've always been writing stories and stuff, but yeah, poetry came about probably a few years ago, and I've just been like in love with it ever since. And yeah, I've just been performing and doing.
So you do shows and things like that? Okay.
Yeah, so I produce a show that is based around different artists, mainly in Toronto, but since it's on Zoom now, anyone in the world.
Okay, that's awesome.
Yeah, which is great. And so there's like poets, comedians, just the storytellers.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's something I've been actually wanting to try to implement in my area over here, is something similar to that, because there's not really a diverse entertainment aspect of creativity around here.
Right.
I find that especially in your 20s, the main aspect of entertainment is like nightclubs and bars for most people.
Yeah.
So like, I'm like, okay, I really would like to bring something different. I'm always somebody, I love music. So I grew up DJing and kind of producing music here and there. And that's kind of where my creativity started. And I learned, I'm 35 now. So I look back at my life and it's weird. You're a little bit younger than me, but it seems you have that wisdom to understand, where now I look back at parts of my life, especially in my 20s and stuff like that. And it's just wild to see the growth or the progression.
Right.
But you have to have that mindset to do it right, or at least learn from your mistakes, understand those things.
100%.
Now I say those things because a lot of this show is about people's lives, and everybody thinks that everybody's life is so much better than everybody else's, and this and that.
Right.
And now growing up, did you have this picture perfect life? I mean, how did your creativity help you with that? With your
right. So I think up until about 10, I had a really, really good childhood. So it was picture perfect for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And then one day, it was very out of the blue, but my dad left. My mom and dad never fought. We always thought it was just like, always great. And then one day he left. And then that's kind of when things started stirring up in me, like a lot of questions, like a lot of anger, just probably every emotion you can think of.
Yeah.
So that really gave me something to explore when it came to my writing and just everything in my life.
Yeah, it's very interesting because
Yeah.
I had a similar life like that where, my parents split when I was about 5 years old. So my dad lives in Michigan. He lived up there my whole life. And I kind of had to learn things living with just my mother and my sister, so two females, and that brought me a lot of respect for women, uh, a lot of growth, and really had to basically structured my work ethic to where I am now. And it's interesting to see how, when you look back, that these times, as much as they are hard in your life or what you deem as not normal, when in reality there's a lot of people going through it, if not more.
Right.
We just don't think that. It's interesting to see how important it is to who you are now and your growth in life. And in reality, though, you can go either one way or the other.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
So for you, at that time, like you said, it stirred up all these emotions, and it's interesting because emotions to me are one of the most probably deepest things I think about often, because there's so many. And one thing I actually said to my buddy one day that struck me as odd was, we really don't know how many emotions there are.
Oh man.
Which is crazy to think about, because I don't know if you ever had that feeling or something happened where you never felt that emotion before, and you're like, oh my God, like I never felt this way. That's a new emotion. And the way my brain works is, okay, like how many of these emotions are out there that I've never felt before?
So complex.
Yeah, it really is if you think about it. But that's thinking a little, deeper, which, not a lot of people get into, because then you tend to overthink that stuff. But
Right.
for you, how did those emotions, obviously came about at a young age. You had to try to pull through it. I'm guessing, most people feel rather alone during that time, I would say, or they have maybe their mother or whoever they're there by themselves, but it's still hard. So how did you not go down the wrong path?
Right. I think because my mom did have a really hard time at that time, and I really had to just kind of grow up, like there was no other way for me. And I always feel like I kind of had a good head on my shoulders. I'm not sure what put it there, but I've always just kind of had that common sense that, no, don't do that, or nope, this is what we have to do, no matter how hard it was. Like there was always just kind of like a fire in me wanting to be better, and like wanting to be better than, the certain things that I was given, especially after my dad left, and I'm always striving to be better now. There was never any chance that I was going to go another way.
Yeah. I think that's interesting too, because I tell people, one of the things for me was I always said in my head, I have no other choice.
Yeah.
What other choice do I have but to just go get what I want or do what I need to do or whatever that is?
Yeah.
So I can't understand where people's thought process is when they sit there and they say, they want something, but they can't go get it. It's hard for me to understand, but I totally get what you're saying. I think that's a big reason why you probably had to grow up young. You probably had to learn things on your own very, very young. And that creates a personality trait and a work ethic that can really bring you to good places and a place of progression very quickly in life.
Yeah. And I think like now looking back, I'm very thankful that everything's happened,
Yeah.
because like I can't imagine how I would be if
Oh
everything
man.
was perfect.
I mean, you sit there and you're like, you look back and in the moment at the time when there's a lot of stress and hecticness going on and and uncertainty, and you're like, what is going to happen? Um, and a lot of times, I don't know about you, but you struggle. It's like I struggled a lot with being who always wanted to be and who
Mm,
I knew I had to be successful. And,
right,
and then saying, well, a lot of people might not like this, you know,
right,
and at a young age, you don't know. You're kind of like in your early 20s, you're like, God, do I tone this down? Do I try to fit in? Do I do this or whatever? And
right.
then, you kind of try it. And then when it doesn't make you happy, that's when you have to realize, like, you just have to be yourself, do what you want and go after
Yeah,
what you want in life.
seriously, like,
Um, with you now, so you got through all that stuff. Now, in your teenage years,
mm.
um, any wildness? Were you like a wild child? Were you still on that path of like wanting progression and like focus? And how did your creativity like work into that? Were you looking to do something with that at that age?
So when I was a teenager, I was friends with a lot of wild, wild people. But I was always kind of the one who was like taking care of people, or kind of like, stopping fights and,
Yeah, yeah.
just, yeah, I ended up, leaving that group of friends at a certain point, because I knew that it wasn't good for me. And that I knew that, you know, no
Yeah,
matter or whether it was going to make them happy or not, like I'm just going to go do my thing by myself, because
yeah, that's good.
it's my life. I can't.
I mean, I guess that's good. How old were you when that happened?
Um, 19?
Yeah, that's very young to kind of come to that conclusion, I think.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because most people don't ever get to that conclusion and realize that you have to weed out the negativity or the people in your life that aren't going to really bring you to where you want to be. That
Yeah.
happened. That happened with me too. I mean, in my early 20s, I felt like these people might not be the greatest people, but they're not bad to me. I'm not, you know what I mean? But then you kind of sit there and you're like, as I got older, I said, no, like I need to only be around people with the same mindset as me, the
Yeah.
same morals. And quite honestly, if they're doing bad things to other people,
Mm,
that means I'm no different to them. You know what I
right.
mean? And I think that kind of gets lost in society. You don't think that. You're like, oh, well, they're not doing it to me. But no, if they do bad things, they'll do bad things to anybody.
Mm,
There's either good or bad here.
right.
And that's interesting that you learn that quite early, which is very beneficial. And the more I learn about you, it's interesting because that's where I see um, the creativity of your mind and how you think deeper, but you also think. I said the other day, I said I'm always thinking in the moment, but I'm always looking at the big picture as well.
Right.
And I feel like that's a big reason for success, and that it seems like you were able to do that very early.
Hmm.
So when you get out of these friendships or these things that you feel aren't really progressing you well, what happens after that? Where do you end up going?
Um, well, let's see. After that, I actually stopped drinking, like
Okay.
altogether. Haven't drank in like since then.
Wow.
Yeah. And I went into, after that, a really deep depression,
Hmm.
like really, really bad. And like, I would be lying if I were to say that it doesn't come up still. Like, I'm still,
Hmm.
struggling. But at the time, it was to a point where I didn't know if I was gonna, come out of it.
Yeah.
And I was living at my grandfather's house at the time, and I was just, yeah, it was just a very, very dark
Why do
period.
you think why do you think your mindset fell into that place? Because I think everybody's kind of does that at one point or another. And the reason why I ask is when you tell me, when
Hmm.
you look back at it, I think one of the most important aspects to kind of being able to pull yourself out of a place like that is understanding in the moment. that, oh my God, this is not good, or I'm in this place.
Right.
Because I think the reason why people don't, I think depression and mental illness and these things that get really out of hand is mainly because people don't want to face it, or they don't want to accept that it's happening to them, or
Mm-hmm.
they put blame on everybody else and become a victim. And when you put yourself as a victim, you really can't help yourself, because you have to take responsibility to change.
Right.
So I think that's so important that you realize that. Um, Now, how did you because I agree with you that when you say like now you still struggle a little bit,
Yeah.
I feel that it's like, when you were in a place like that and you come out of a place like that, it's very important to realize it and realize you don't want to go back to that place.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like it's a routine. You have to come up with an everyday thing to say, I'm not going to go back to that area of
Right. And but, like
who I
with
was.
depression, there's situational depression, which means that, the things around you are what causing or are what are causing it.
Yeah.
And
Environment
that
or what people
actual,
perceive.
yeah, and then there's like clinical depression where it's actually, the chemicals in your mind,
Right.
and so I have been diagnosed with clinical depression.
Yeah.
So it doesn't even, sometimes I can feel the most positive, the best that I've felt, the best mindset that I've been in, and then all of a sudden it just hits and
Yeah.
it's not even about anything.
Yeah. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Um, so you don't think now the clinical aspect of that with the chemicals in the brain, because I'm so intrigued with the mind and how it works and how things change it so drastically, and it could be for the better, it could be for the worse. And I
Right.
see a lot of it out here.
Hmm.
Now with you, what do you think? Do you think that something specific in your life triggered that change in chemicals?
So it can actually come from a parent. And my
Genetic?
mom, yeah, when my mom was younger, she got in a car accident, and when she woke up, she she had brain damage, and it caused her to have depression,
Hmm.
which she still deals with up until now. And so I am thinking that it was just passed down from her. And then when I got in that place, it just,
Yeah. That's interesting because
oh,
I've had a buddy on my show who
mm-hmm.
he actually got into 3 car accidents,
Wow.
like always getting into car accidents for some reason.
Yeah.
And he actually has had similar situations with his brain
Mm.
where TBIs they call them, and it triggered a lot of like anger and certain
Mm.
type of emotions,
Wow.
and that's funny that you say that. So yeah, I wonder if that could be an issue with genetically passing it down. That's very interesting.
Yeah.
um and so as for the other aspect, the situational, that's more environmental.
Right.
Yeah, which I could see. And I think that's where I think a lot of people this generation deal with that
Yeah.
because of social media, because of judgment and
Mm.
insecurity and all these things.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably more prominent now than ever, and that's probably why we have such an influx in it, in total,
Right.
depression or mental illness or whatever they
Mm.
call it. Yeah, that's wild. So do you do anything specific to kind of keep yourself on track, like meditation or thought process or anything like that?
Yeah. So I think it was about 8 years ago when I first started getting really depressed. It was probably like 5 or 6 months into it. I said like, okay, I have to figure something out, or else I'm not gonna make it. And and then I started meditating,
Mhm.
and I decided to go to school. So it would get me out of the house, and I was forced to do something. And then I started having a lot of anxiety. So I would have anxiety attacks like constantly throughout the day. Um, and then I would have to deal with those. So it was just like a lot of learning new patterns and like how to neutralize them,
Yeah.
I guess.
Are you
Um,
are you more are you more of a natural type like healing person, or like me personally, I don't believe in a lot of pharmaceuticals and things like that
Right.
because I feel like they just fuel the fire or they mask a lot of symptoms.
Right.
So I'm a big believer in more natural things, herbs or supplements that will help calm the body or the mind
Yeah.
without all these crazy things.
Right. So like I'm with you on that. Like I am definitely like a natural healer and I don't take any prescription medications, but also what I've come to realize is that if people need them to like keep their lives,
Hmm.
it is just like
Yeah,
there's no other question. Like
yeah,
take them. I know they're
absolutely.
gonna back it, you know.
I'm the
And
same way. I believe in that. Yeah.
yeah, the
Yeah,
mandate.
I think that they exist for a specific reason. I don't think it's good to really rely on them, but I think that if you are in dire need and nothing else is working
Yeah,
and it's making your life better, then okay, I can understand that. You know,
100%. Yeah.
yeah. What about diet? Are you big on diet and stuff like that to keep yourself, feeling good?
Yeah, so I think like since all of this quarantine COVID stuff started, I've been eating a lot more vegetables, a lot
Yeah.
less meat.
Hmm.
I still eat meat quite often, but not as much as I did before. But I do still have a
Yeah.
lot of taste.
Sorry,
I'm
you
not
gotta live life. Gotta live life. You know.
serious. Like I'll eat
Well,
it.
that's the thing. Like even for me, I'm not. I don't have a lot of vices. I'm not. I don't drink. Like you don't drink really. I don't drink often. I'm mainly like sociable. Like if I'm at a gathering or something.
Right.
But like food is like that's like the treat. You know what I mean? So
Exactly.
that's really hard to cut out when and to be really structured and not have any type of vices is really hard, especially nowadays.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, so I read a couple of your things on here. I read out all of them actually, but one that I wanted to kind of go over, which was a little interesting to me,
Hmm.
um, is I'll read it. It says this was actually one of the last ones you put up that was a written poem. It says the best way to describe him is to look through a kaleidoscope. Words can't express the specific light revealing his twisted mind, relentless colors, and never-ending layers.
Mm,
Now, the part that sticks out to me the most is where you say never ending layers.
mm,
And the reason why is because I think all the time about how, number one, nobody really knows anybody ever
ever.
because you're
Yeah.
not in their mind. You don't know what's going on in there, or
It's
you don't
another
know.
world.
It really is. So, like, I
Yeah.
think about those layers and I'm like, there's a lot of layers there. And I think about how, in reality, the only person who really knows you is yourself. No matter how close you really get to somebody, no matter how much you give to them, they're not in your head, they're not in your mind, they're not in your body.
Mm,
So when you say that stuff and you're like, okay, the never ending layers, what's your interpretation of
exactly that. And it's like the
that?
person that I am speaking about in that it's like every time we speak, there's something new.
Yeah.
And he's, yeah, just very,
I
just a lot.
wondered that. I wondered that about a lot of your things, if that was a personal, actual experience with someone or many people throughout your life or whatever, that kind of gave you that motivation to
Mm.
put it on paper like that.
Yeah. So everything I write is
Hmm.
true
Hmm.
and from real experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, Now, obviously, these experiences have to do with love or relationships. So, was this a now? How I want to know kind of how you look at. I'm guessing these are past relationships that you're writing about.
So that poem specifically is actually about a friend.
A friend. Okay,
Yeah.
that's interesting.
Yeah.
All right. So, regardless, I would just say, okay, let's just say relationships in general then.
Mhm.
Um, and are these mostly people that are not in your life now?
Um, no, no, there
No.
are some that
Yeah.
aren't, but like people that I need closure with,
Right.
or
Right. Right.
yeah, but yeah, some of them are still about people I speak to still.
I got you.
Yeah.
Now, when you write about this,
Mm.
how does it come to you? Does it like how does it hit your brain, and how do you put it on that paper?
Yeah, so if it's a thought that comes up a lot, so like a reoccurring thought, then I know that it's worth, putting out there.
Mm,
Um, if it's just kind of something that passes by and it never comes back, then I
yeah,
normally don't think about it. But yeah, if it keeps coming up, then I just feel like it's like, I don't know,
yeah,
something coming through me to
yeah.
tell.
That's interesting because
Yeah.
for you, it's more of a process where you have to be like, it's almost like you're reassuring yourself, like this means something.
Right.
Kind of like, yeah, like uh experiences in life that keep happening, and like to somebody that thinks a little deeper, they would say this means something. That's
Right.
similar to how your process is.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have a kind of a really thought out process of creativity.
Right.
Me, I'm kind of impulsive with my creativity. I
Yeah.
have to get it out. You know what I mean? Like right then and there, when I think about it, that's when I need to do it, or
Yeah.
that's when I need to start planning it.
Mm,
Um, that's kind of how my mind works.
right.
But with that said, now this process happens with you. It's obviously that thought has to be structured out a little different in your mind than what it is on the paper. It's
Right.
not the exact words I would expect. So how do you get to those exact words, putting those together? What is it? Do you have a process for that, or does that just come to you naturally?
Yeah. So like what I'm always telling people to do is to free write. So just kind of turn your brain off and just write.
Yeah.
Like pages and pages, every single thing that is coming through,
Hmm.
and then look back and you will be surprised at what comes out
That's
because
true.
a lot of the time I don't even realize I'm thinking it, and then it's usually quite poetic, the things that
Yeah. Yeah.
come out, because when I'm thinking about it too much and when I'm trying to, write something specifically, then it comes out looking like shit or sounding like shit.
Yeah. I
So
can
it
get
just has
that.
to, yeah, freely come through me.
Well, it's funny how you say that, because like I noticed a lot of the things that I like to do creativity wise shut off my brain to the point where I'm only focused on that.
Mm,
And that's when I started to notice in life that these things are very important to me. And it's
right.
almost like therapy,
Mm,
where if you have, I feel like a lot of people with creative brains have overworking brains.
oh yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So when I'm doing something that makes me not only feel good, but shuts my brain off from all those other things going on in my life, I know it's very important to myself.
Right.
And those are the things that I feel I'm somewhat good at as well. So I try to focus a lot on those things. Um, so that's funny how you say that. It's just interesting. I love really getting into the mind of other creative people. Uh, Besides your creativity, like I know for me, I am not good at things like math. I am not good at things like certain science. So
Yeah.
that's where I'm getting at. I'm like, is your brain mainly just creativity?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's all it is.
Yeah. I know. I was like that, and I always thought about that. I'm like, because then I come across people, and I'm like, I feel like that person has zero creativity, but is the smartest person in the world, probably could figure out any math problem out there. You know?
Right. And I feel
Yeah.
like we've been like so like tricked into thinking that people who are like that are the smart ones.
Yeah, well, we have been tricked into a lot of things of
Yeah.
thinking, but I'm not going to go into that because people are a little upset with me about thinking outside the box right now.
Oh man.
Yeah, in regards to what's going on out there in the world. But I'm
Okay.
a deep thinker. I'm a deep thinker. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't believe in just taking what's thrown at me. I ask questions. You know what I
Right.
mean? I'm
Yeah,
sorry,
it's
but I ask questions. Yeah.
and a lot of people don't.
No, and that's why, number one, I feel like you're really not knowledgeable, because we're not getting taught the things in life that we really need. I feel like if I was taught as a child more in school how to love, how to
Mm,
be nicer to people, how to understand people more, communication, all
Yeah.
these things. I feel school should have been taught more about emotion rather than all this other stuff that I really never even think about now as an adult.
I didn't learn anything in school. Like
That's
not.
that's really kind of how I feel. It's odd. And like for me, like I didn't go to college or anything like that.
Mhm.
I took a little bit of a few classes, but that's when I started to realize how my brain worked too. And I'm
Right.
like,
Hmm.
I'd be in a psychology class, do really well because I'm
Right.
interested in it. Go to
Mm.
math and I'm failing. And I'm like, I can't do this. This doesn't work. Uh,
Yeah.
but I'm very grateful at the same time that I'm able to understand how my brain works and
Yeah.
how, and at an early age, which I feel like you did too.
Yeah.
Because I meet a lot of people now that are well older than me and have no idea who the hell they are.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
that's one of the most upsetting things to me in life is seeing people not really know who they are as a person.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
so I mean, regardless of what a lot of people go through, like you, myself, indeed, as well as a lot of other people, we, like I said, we think that this doesn't happen to others, but that's just us being so focused on our own issues
Yeah.
that we think that we're alone in this world, and we're really not.
Like not at all. I think
No.
I've a lot through this whole experience the last like 5-6 months, and it's like I've connected so much more with like my friends. And it's funny, like one day my friend will say, hey, I'm going through this right now, and I'm like, me too.
Yeah.
And then like, next week, hey, I'm going through this right now, me too. Like
Yeah.
we're all on a very similar page.
Well, it's funny because I think that I was thinking about this earlier, and I don't know. I'll ask you what your top emotions are that you feel are the most important.
Mm,
But for me, the top two that I think of is love, number one. I think if you
yeah.
approach everything with that, that creates just a positive mindset.
Yeah.
If that's going to be your first approach with love, making sure that you're doing everything with that, and this may not be necessarily an emotion, but I feel like it is, to be honest, because a lot of people, a lot of people use emotion with this rather than logic, communication.
Mm,
So
yeah.
those are my top two, and I feel like communication, like I said, is so lost in this generation right now. It's so lost. People can't sit
Yeah.
here and communicate without being able to just judge or tell people they're not right or wrong and all
Right.
these things, and that's sad to me. But what
Wow.
what about you? What are your top?
Um, so love, yes,
Mhm.
would be definitely my number one. And I think, yeah, I guess that's not really an emotion. Yeah, I think what's really important is like love, empathy,
Mhm.
understanding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Compassion. That's one thing that I tell people all the time. I'm like, love, care, compassion. You got to approach things like this with everything.
Mm-hmm.
But I tell people at the same time, I'm like, you can't. I think the biggest thing in life, especially if you want to be successful with your creativity, and that's what I learned is, as much as I love creating things, my passion is being an entrepreneur. My passion is business and seeing the things that I create. Seeing other people utilize them for a good feeling, emotion,
Yeah.
So that's like a passion of mine. But to do that, you have to be very in touch with yourself, very confident in your abilities.
Right.
But I've learned that I'm a big believer in the world, and that the world, is really controlling all the energy and going on around us, inside us, and everything.
Yeah.
So, but with that being said, you have to respect this world. You cannot go around being an idiot and just acting like you own this place.
Right.
That's what's going on a lot around here.
A lot of selfishness.
I said selfishness is the real epidemic.
Mm,
Besides insecurity, those two combined are
mm,
just that's creating havoc in this
yeah.
generation. Havoc. And it's like, and in reality, it's like, how do it's, oh man, the way my brain works. It's so ironic because I think about how everybody runs around blaming everything, but
Right.
we are the ones ruining everything.
Yeah.
Whether you think
Yeah.
you are or not, you are contributing in some way or another
Yeah.
to making this world worse. You just got to accept that we all are somehow.
Yeah.
You know what I
I
mean?
think humans are the worst thing to ever happen to Earth.
Yeah, that's why I'm a big, I'm a big animal lover. I'm much,
Mm,
I can't stand when I see people treat animals poorly. I'm like, but people I can understand a little bit more. Not that I would ever treat people poorly,
right.
but they're not as innocent, and I have conflicting feelings about that because I got into it with one person because I said I feel like we're all born pure to a certain
Right.
extent. Like
Yeah.
we don't really know bad until we see
Mhm.
it or we're taught it or it's instilled in us, learned behavior, so on and so forth. And somebody, we're all damaged in a
Right.
way. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? I've never met a person that's not damaged. Have you? Come on, let's be realistic here.
Someone who's faking it. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, if they're faking it, but if you really get to know people, we all got our own issues that contribute to who we are. We're not.
Right.
I don't know anybody that's had it that easy, and the ones
Mm.
that do, they're oblivious to what's going on.
Yeah, I don't want to be around them.
No, there's not a lot of substance to those people. I
Yeah.
feel like because the people that I connect with the most are the people that kind of went through things in life, learned from those experiences,
Yeah.
and you can't keep fucking up. If you keep screwing up, then you're gonna constantly have a life like that. Same shit happening.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. It's a cycle.
It really is. And that's why I say it's a routine of staying on that positivity route and understanding. Like I ended up, what I said to myself is I basically give myself to the world. You know what I mean? Like my body is my environment.
Right.
The world is somewhat controlling what's going on out here. I can't control what's going on outside.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But most people dwell on that the most.
Yeah. And it's like, what are you going to do? Like, what are they going to do about it?
It's crazy. I don't know if you ever saw this guy, but if not, check him out. His name's Dr. Joe Dispenza.
Okay.
He's on YouTube, and he's one of, like, I have a lot of people that I kind of listen to on there. Jordan Peterson is one. Alan Watts is another guy that I really like a lot. These to me are like philosophers of this time. You know what I mean? More of the modern age. And the way they speak is very eloquently and understanding and straight to the point about humanity and the mind and how we work as people and what works and what doesn't.
Yeah.
And I listen to a lot of those things to kind of keep me on a path of understanding that, only my mind can control myself and my actions. You know what I mean? So you kind of
Yeah.
gotta give yourself to the world in a way, and that's what I vowed to do in one aspect of my life.
Right.
But before we get out of here, I kind of want to see what your plans are for the future. I mean, so now you're at this point where I'm guessing you feel pretty good. You're doing some things out there that you're putting your creativity to work, which I like
Yeah.
to see in people. That's what brought me here. So your plans for the future, what are they?
Yeah. So, one thing or a couple things I've been working on. One is a poetry book. I'm not sure if I'm going to start with a chapbook, probably, which is like a very short book. And then there's also a novel that I've been working on for the last 2 years. So it's kind of like a very different than poetry. It's like a horror, like,
Oh,
like
that's
murder.
totally the other side.
Yeah, I love like true
I
crime.
like that. That's diverse. That's
Oh,
diverse creativity there.
I feel like I could write anything.
That's good though. That's great. And it's also good that you're not afraid to kind of dive into that and show people that, like, listen, I'm not just this type of writer. I'm not just that. And I think that can bring you to different levels of your creativity and hopefully progress you into where you want to be.
For sure.
You know?
Yeah.
But listen, I'll let you out of here. I think it was great talking to you. And next time, I always kind of try to bring people back on later in life to see where they're at and if their goals came about. And if not, then, we talk about that too and see what happened and if they're on the same path. So
Right.
I hope the next time I talk to you, these goals are achieved, and we can talk
Right.
about those things and see where you're at. But I appreciate you coming on and telling us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. Thank you.
Um, Absolutely, anytime. And if you know anybody that is looking to put their story out there, who they are, or just talk, that's what I'm about. That's what this is all about, is just getting to know each other and human connection. You know what I mean? I think we need more of that in life, and that's why I reached out to you. So very happy to have you today, guys. If you want to go check her out, it's at Annie Poet. I said that correctly, right? I don't like to screw people's things up. Do you have anywhere else that people can find you, find your work, if you want to let
Yeah.
them know?
So, I also have my my personal page, which is Annie Carter with an extra R on the end because Annie Carter was taken. But yeah, that's pretty much all for now, I think.
Okay, yeah, that's good. At least people can kind of see your personality, and I hope that they were able to really get to know you today. So
Mhm.
listen, we'll see what happens in the future. And once again, thank you.
Yes, thank you.
All right, guys, that was episode 28. You know where to find us, For the Love Podcast. Have a good day.